David is joining me here, and this working session, we're going to be rolling up our sleeves. We've discussed the vision. Now we're looking at the initiatives that will deliver that vision. And thank you, David, for helping me with this working session. I know it's 10:30 at night here in the U.S., so I appreciate you stepping in and doing this. So I'm going to first walk us through the 5 initiatives. We'll then step into each initiative to really crowdsource feedback. And David and I will discuss our observations of the feedback as it comes in. We're going to do this 6 times, 5 minutes, 6 times each. So the first 5 are the defined initiatives, and the 6th will be an open forum of what we might have missed. And also, Karina will be visualizing your input on each of these sections in real time. So we're putting her to the test here. Now, this working session will be documented, and it will be providing input for the continued work with our industry-wide action plan that we plan to launch in conjunction with the UN's 75th anniversary later this year. So our sustainability committee will be driving this and rolling everything together. So these are the 5 initiatives. Unify the industry on a sustainable vision and actions. Make renewable energy available everywhere to everyone. Define sustainability data center framework. Drive sustainability through procurement, and achieve radical efficiency through innovation. This is what came out of these working sessions as 5 primary pillars that we really need to go back and address when it comes down to achieving every click improves the future.
讲中文的参会者，接下来就是我们要来讨论，就是说，达到我们愿景的5个倡议。那么我们是每一个倡议提出来以后，有5分钟的时间。那么，请大家在用那个 chat， 用聊天的功能呢，来提出你自己的看法也好，问意见也好。那么，我们不会把每一个问题都会回答，然后我跟丁会做一些这个交谈，然后说提供一些意见。那么只有5分钟的时间，所以我们不可能把每一个问题都讲清楚。所以这个是先给大家道歉。那么5分钟以后，当我们把这个5个大家看到的这个5个倡议全部交流完了以后呢，我们还会有5分钟的时间，请大家讨论一下有什么东西我们这边没有提到的，那我们也非常愿意听到大家的提供意见，好吧？谢谢。
The initiative is Unify the Industry on Sustainability Vision and Actions. So this initiative is really laying the foundation for the other initiatives. As you have heard earlier today, this work will already have started by framing the overall direction for the industry through the actual vision. Every click improves the future. But what we've found is that we lack a common industry-wide vision on sustainability. Does everybody agree? That's why we're trying to drive this unified vision. We did not speak in one voice to vendors, policymakers, or to the public. This led to a lack of coordination that slows progress. So with this initiative, we want to establish an industry-wide commitment to a common vision. We want to unify our action plans, like we just talked about within the panel itself. How do we come together to really go after each of these initiatives and achieve this vision? And that, if we can be able to do, will compound the effect of our community actions. And we believe that we can achieve more together. Now, we are really interested to hear what you think about this initiative. So if you have ideas on actions for how this can be done and so on, again, David will translate the comments in the window as we start to have conversations, but please start putting in your content. Start pushing these in here. And by the way, just whatever's coming to mind, type it, submit it. Don't think about it too much. Just start putting the content in, because it's about the actual crowdsourcing of these ideas, and you're going to spark thoughts from other people. So we've got one that came in here as well. I would think it would be a good, the action plan includes speaking with academia and policymakers to get buy-in and see collaborations across borders. So what's your thought on that, David?
Well, that will be interesting. And I don't think I am Dean yourself and a few folks that would be able to speak to the Chinese government or Indian government, for that matter, right?
Exactly.
So we need local support. So we need a local participation for sure. And academia might be a little bit easier, but government.
Yeah, and again, I think I look back to the Green Grid days, right? to establishing green grid, you need to have local expertise, right, and local perspectives like yourself, so that you can have those conversations at the right level. So I agree with that. You know, one of the challenges that we found was that there's a lot of intent for you know, academia to want to help feed talent into this industry, right? And there's a lot of sustainability type work that's going on, but there's a lack of accredited, or not accredited, but basically curriculum and degree programs that are aligned to digital infrastructure that would bring people into our world. And so,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
sorry?
the other issue I see between the industry and academia really is a clear communication channel. And I have seen some work done by the universities, and they are clearly out of touch. They don't know what the real problems are. They are solving problems that they imagine, well, to put it bluntly. So,
Yeah.
so we need communication.
Yeah, totally. And so if you just look at academia, I think that, you know, we've got an education committee, and they've had a challenge with, you know, when you go to a school, it's just like any other business. What am I going to, you know, how many people can I actually get hired out of this? Right? How many people would sign up for this program? When I develop the curriculum, it's a multi-year effort. Okay.
Yep.
So we need both vocational, universities, colleges, and certifications, postgraduate certifications, those things. We need ability to get people in faster too. You know, so I think there's a lot on the academia side that that we can work together on figuring out different ways to do this, because we do want big degree programs, but it can't be the only thing that brings in talent.
And also, it's a shame. It's a shame that you look at the industry. We really are short of talents.
Yeah.
And the universities, and they don't know how to produce the talents that we need. So
yeah,
it's a disconnect.
Yep, and again, it goes right back to diversity. Same thing. So, okay, so there's a few more things that have come back in here. Yeah, unify government goals with the industry. Yeah, we heard about that in the panel too. When you know, China is really putting in data centers as a seventh pillar, then you can now really start to drive the right things. Can they all be sustainable? Can it be 100% renewable? Can you figure out the supply chain to really drive down the amount of carbon that's embedded, the carbon that's used? So there's even the PUE standards, right, which are still controversial, but the whole point is to drive down the consumption or waste inside of a data center. Yeah. All right. So we've got about a minute of additional input coming back in here. So if you've got ideas, please put them back in through the chat.
Hey, Dean, while we're waiting for questions to come up, and I think you might want to do some marketing for IAM to establish local chapters, just to the point, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We need to reach out to the local communities and the people who understand the local business practice and know where to find the government officials. Yeah. You can do it from remote.
You're absolutely right. So just like you said before, we need to have local support to do it, and the people that live there know it best, you know. And so we have established in India. So we started one in Mumbai. We have also, Raymond was actually driving one for Hong Kong. And we started doing this with TGGC to how we can basically break through and have the ability within China. So there's so many more, right? Thailand, we were just talking about Sanita. Australia, we kicked off as well. Great. So we got about 20 seconds left here. Great. Thank you for more inputs. This is good. We'll bring this all back again to the Sustainability Committee. All right. So let's go into initiative 2. All right. So make renewable energy available everywhere. And one of the things that came in before was to everyone. So the second initiative is around renewable energy. While many companies are already making great efforts to supply their data center operations with true 24/7 renewable energy, this is simply not possible in all locations globally. We heard about that in the panel. There are many different reasons for this. One example is a technical perspective. Wind and solar are intermittent sources of power. So how can we adjust demand to production and or store energy until it is really needed? And that came up in the panel as well. Another example is the market designed for renewable energy. How can we develop a market where the true value of renewable power is known on an hourly basis? This would increase the transparency of the value for both production and storage capacity. With this initiative, we want to work together across the industry and with policymakers to enable access to cost-effective solutions in all markets globally. That's key. We strongly believe that an important step for reaching our overall vision for the future is to ensure that all data centers have access to 100% 24/7 renewable energy in all markets. You know, give me your thoughts a little bit, David. We had a pretty extensive conversation in the panel about this, right? In the different areas. But do you think there are answers that are in the short term that we could actually get to do this?
That's a tough one. No, yeah. I keep thinking. So you look at the renewable energy. You have the end users, and we're talking about the data centers, and you talk about the generators, right? And the people who own the panels and the wind turbines.
Yeah.
And what is missing? Well, there are two pieces missing. One is the storage for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other really is the grid. Can we use the AI, some new technologies, to enable the grid to support more renewable energy? And I think, I'm not seeing the involvement of the folks from that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Google is doing some, Microsoft is doing some. We probably need to reach out to these people and make sure they understand the demand and the supply side, both sides.
Yeah. You know, what comes to mind for me is, I look at demand response, and we talked a little bit about this, where the data centers could provide stability for the grid in areas where energy is a challenge, right?
Right.
Beyond grid scale energy storage is, I think one of the things we've got to do. But the ability to take stored energy in data centers and help flatten loads,
right,
is also another very interesting thing. Can
right.
you now take these UPSs, not the generators, right? I'm saying
Right.
UPSs, and say, light them up so that when you've got these peaky things, you're you're peak shaving.
Right.
You're removing the draw from the grid itself. You're using the stored energy versus just letting it be there for the emergency situation. That's the AI you talked about. Do the calculations, orchestrate with the grid.
Right.
Figure out how you can optimize the draw to keep it consistent, because that's also going to provide stability for the grid at the same time. So really just driving down that consumption.
Yeah, well, there are some key pieces of technology missing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, and if you talk to a data center owner, he would be scared if you tell him that right, the community wants to use his UPS capacity for some time. It's not going to happen unless you can have the technology to assure him it's safe.
Yeah. And I've seen this in Arizona, in the U.S., and other places where the utilities want to take over the diesel generators, right? But you still have the same problems of emitting carbon, all the things that when you run those, and there's policies of not running them over a certain number of hours, and there's penalties. But it still goes down to, how do we get renewable energy at the source continuously? We got to solve it at the real root of the problem, I believe. So we've got about 30 seconds left within this one. Again, if you've got more ideas, please keep popping them in here. Nice. I love this brainstorming, right? The ability to take a bunch of minds and actually start solving a problem. All right, great. So let's go to the next initiative. Initiative number 3. This is Define Sustainable Data Center Framework. So this initiative is about defining, as an industry, what are the key characteristics for a truly sustainable data center with zero impact. A lot in that sentence. There are many great initiatives out there, but how do we collect and share those in an efficient manner? How do we deal with common sources of greenhouse gas emissions throughout the full life cycle of the data center, such as concrete and steel, diesel gensets, and so on? The supply chain aspect of it, because there's loaded carbon in the life of that actual data center, from its design to when it's actually retired. What are the best practices globally for heat reuse, recycling material, cooling techniques for different climates? How can we challenge the old paradigms? With this initiative, we want to establish an industry best practice framework for the design, build, and operation of a sustainable data center. We think that this would help guide owners and operators, service providers, suppliers, and policymakers in building a more sustainable infrastructure. So over time, this initiative will make truly sustainable design and operations the default approach for all data centers. All right, so how do we define a sustainable data center framework? So feel free to throw your ideas in here. So David, your thoughts first, and what this means.
The first thing come to mind is like we talked about the PUE. We need a metric, all metrics, a set of them, right? You can't measure, you can't improve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for this one, and it's so broad, and just to look at it, and you don't even know where to start. But if you put some metrics around, you will be able to improve one area at a time.
Yeah. You're such an output-driven engineer, I got to say, David.
I'm an engineer.
Which is great. No. So I look at this as, if you think of the UN Sustainability Development Goals, what they created was a framework of 17 goals. Okay. Then they said, we want the world to figure out how they achieve those goals. They put the onus back on the actual, countries. Right. Leaders. Yeah. And so I look at this as something similar to that one where, look, we're going to define a framework about elements within a data center. And the goal here is to really drive it to a net zero data center. Right. That, does that have generators? Is this actually using waste heat to have a negative PUE? There's a lot of things that are done within that. But being able to define that one is a lot of work.
Right, absolutely. You look at PUE, well, it's a brilliant idea, right? And the more you look at it, well, it's simple, it's not complete, and there are holes, and of course, but nonetheless, it's a brilliant idea. It's so simple, everybody can understand, even a CEO can understand, right? And we need to come up with something like that
So I agree, and Josh just threw out here that we need a metric above and beyond PUE.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree, and I look at the workload when it comes down to what happens in a data center, because we're talking about everything on the right side of the decimal in PUE. What about the left, the one? Right. So
you came up with something at eBay, right? For every transaction. Yep. But unfortunately, it's if you're in a different business, you can't use a transaction. But every business has to define its own output. Right.
And by the way, that was a framework because a transaction can be any type of thing. Whether it's a ride on Uber or whether it's a sale on eBay, the whole point is that the numerator, right, is the thing that matters, and the denominator is really the kilowatt hours consumed, just like you'd have in a car, right? Or your house. So, but anyways, the whole point is that do we have a framework that we can really build that would help guide? So, and I think of emerging markets. What are the best practices? What should be done in India? What should be done in South Africa? What should be done in areas where they don't have a lot of data centers at all yet? You know what I mean? That's where I think this could help guide quite a bit, because without it, we're rudderless. Everybody's got 100 different ways to do it.
Right. And the other way to look at this whole issue really is, you talk about the emerging market and how do they build their data center? They are using the blueprints from the US, from other countries, right? But it's the same paradigm. We needed to look at it from a different angle. We need a paradigm shift. The design and the sustainability has to come before the drawings are made.
Yep, agreed. And so we've got some good stuff in here. Australia's neighbors ratings, NEBERS, are worth taking a look. Also, somebody brought up a data center performance index. We had that one around sustainability and cost, and as well as efficiency. So there's more things, but really the framework overall, I agree with you. Let's figure out a way that we can do some measurement as well. But we need to get these best practices together. That's the whole intent of this framework itself. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the input. Now we're going to go into initiative number 4. Initiative number 4 is drive sustainability through procurement. So this initiative is about procurement of materials and services as a tool to drive sustainability. For decades, RFPs have been designed with cost and reliability as the focus. While this continues to be an important factor, of course, we need to make sure that sustainability becomes an integral part of all procurement decisions. As an example, old tech requirements for things such as delta T or other factors that might be included in RFPs for co-location services may prevent the colo providers from delivering the most sustainable solution because they're forcing a certain amount of delta T. Simple little things like that cause a ripple effect. With this initiative, we want to leverage our combined purchasing power to align procurement specs for high priority products and services with high standards of sustainability values. Okay, so how do we bake this into the actual RFP process? How do we bake this into the buying? How do we bake it into site selection? You know, everything about procurement when it comes down to data center and technical infrastructure. So David, you heard that. What's your thoughts on this one?
I think the procurement department, they don't know anything about the technical issues. So I think we needed to, as an industry, especially the technical people in the industry, needed to think hard about all these requirements. And I'm sure Vertiv, Schneider, and these equipment manufacturers, they can make equipment, crack units with different delta T's, right? It's the end user. Do they feel comfortable using higher delta T? It needs some education, I think.
Yeah. You know, what comes to mind for me is Walmart. And Walmart, I mean, has such a massive supply chain. And what they ended up doing was putting out these requirements for everyone in the supply chain, and they baked in sustainability. They baked in D&I. They baked in, you know, minority-owned businesses. They baked in all these things that forced the supply chain to rethink how they did something. Now that to me is kind of like government regulations. Look, we have 7 pillars, right, in China, and in one of those is data centers. And then we're going to say, this is how we want these things done. That's a way to push a lot of this to happen. But it comes down to the people that have the money that buy the stuff have to kind of set the tone to be able to allow people to innovate. Because we know there's a lot of smart people in the supply chain services and product, right, companies. It's just that they can be hamstrung or throttled based on an unknown that comes in through a procurement, like a RFP. They may limit, you know, what they're getting. They may not even know it from the end user standpoint. Okay, so a few things in here. The Microsoft model will be good to follow. We should find out more about that from Tim. Repository for RFP documents and a playbook. That'd be interesting. So we've got samples for people to follow. That would be really good. Perhaps the procurement folks for technical buying should come from the operations side rather from the general business hire. Yes, that's great. Live in someone else's shoes and all of a sudden you will change the way your behaviors are.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and Bhargav was saying that procurement should be given a mandate not to always go for the cheapest, but consider the bigger value and total cost of ownership.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really needs to be some type of matrix when you make a decision that isn't just about the cheapest. I agree. And you look at site selection, you have compromises on certain things, and you know you can get to the ones that may be a little more expensive, but it's the ideal solution. Yeah.
But it's not an easy one. Push it. Yeah, when you try to push that more expensive solution through the upper management, well, there's a lot of convincing to do.
That's true. That's very true, especially when they may not understand the impact of the decisions. Yeah, you know, that's where you know, DCPI came out of. So we can go back and get a cheap data center, but what if it fails?
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's really got to be a balance of, well, how well are they designed from operations? Do they have procedures? Are they consistent? You know, all those different things. But you know, the same thing. I love this best practice. You know, if we had a repository that Joshua was talking about, of RFP documents that people could use as templates. That could inform the folks that are coming out of the business side that may not have an operations experience. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up as well. Thank you. This is good stuff. All right, we're going to go into Initiative 5. We're making good progress here. All right, I love this one the best, by the way. This is about breaking things and actually doing something different. So number 5 is achieve radical efficiency through innovation. Christian, Joe, and a bunch of people had very specific things about this wording, right? It has to be radical, right? And you have to drive innovation by thinking radically. So an important part of the challenge as we see it is that we're using climate impacting resources because they're plentiful and cheap. In other words, it's all here. So innovation is mostly driven by economic constraint because we don't have the money to invest, etc., not by the ecological constraints. The resources are running out. Finally, we are worried that the pace of innovation is too slow to reverse climate change. So we want to leverage the collective brainpower in the industry to challenge old paradigms, inspire smart people, teams, and companies to find new and innovative solutions, radically improve end-to-end efficiency by designing under artificial constraints. That one's really important. You need to constrain yourself. So imagine that there's no more diesel or water available. What would you do? You only have what you have today. You would think differently. You would come up with new and innovative solutions for it. So design under constraint. So we expect that this initiative and way of thinking will drive radical efficiency by designing under those ecological constraints. The resources are running out. Okay? So by the way, an example of this one is that in Russia, they had some of the most talented programmers because they were limited to 640K of memory. They were limited, right? So what did they do? They figured out more efficient ways to store in a smaller amount of actual memory. That design under a constraint, they had a physical constraint of how much memory they could use. And they came up with really, really innovative and efficient ways to go back and utilize that memory. If we had those same constraints that were happening within power, water, concrete, anything like that one, how would you design it differently? How would you think differently about actually pushing it? Because the most efficient data center in the world is one that's not built. We need more data centers, but you get the idea. So your thoughts on this one, David?
This is going to be a challenge. Well, I'm constantly struggling with innovation and availability, stability, risk management, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything new, there is this risk attached to it. How do we manage that? How do we sell that to the upper management? That will be a constant struggle.
And this is where you think of the innovators are the ones that actually take that big risk. So if you look at the drawings you just put there, like how do you take that leap and try something?
Right.
And I'll give you an example. I challenged my engineering teams to build a data center with primary power from fuel cells. I gave them a blank slate of paper, but I gave them the approval to think about it differently. And what do? They solved the problem. And guess what? They still came back with a cost-effective way to do it. We removed a whole bunch of things out of the data center. Our actual electrical distribution went down by 75%. So suddenly all of this money got saved and we put it into something else. And we had primary power from fuel cells, but nobody would ever think about doing that because it wasn't done that way before. And this is what I think what people are thinking is, can we now go back and wipe the slate clean and rethink under constraint? How would we solve that problem? And that's when breakthrough innovation starts to happen. I think of Apple and the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever thought of removing buttons? No, they're always there. I need something. Okay, so all right, we've got some good stuff in here. Research Institute from Sweden, RIS. That's interesting. So trying to get the institutes lined up. This goes to education too. We could probably have them start thinking about these problems, collaborating with them. Artificial photosynthesis. I'm not sure what that is, Tim, but feel free to put in a few more comments. Photosynthesis, interesting. Okay. Oh, that's a great one. Beth General, she was saying that, what are other industries doing to do this? This is a great idea. I remember Christian Bellotti was saying that he was trying to hire people and he couldn't find the right people. And so he ended up hiring somebody from the dairy industry for his supply chain. Why? Because there's perishables in the dairy industry. You must make sure that that stuff gets to the right place at the right time. So he brought those people in and started saying, how do you make sure that my lead times on all of my generators and everything else are done right with that kind of urgency?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that, Beth. That's a great idea. We should really be leveraging other industries and their innovations and see if there's something applicable right within this. Great. Okay, so we need to wrap this up. Thank you for the input. Excellent. And more is coming in here. Okay. Necessity is the mother of invention. All right.
Yes,
all right. Nice one, Chris. Okay, so we're going to do this last one. This is open. So here we talk about 5 initiatives. Okay, unify the industry on sustainability visions and actions. Make renewable energy available everywhere. Define sustainable data center framework. Drive sustainability through procurement, and achieve radical efficiency through innovation. So what else have we missed? What else should we be thinking about? And David, you brought up one, but it's more on the other side of risk. So I don't know if that's part of another category, or how do we bake in to balance risk with efficiency to make sure we achieve both? That may be something to consider, right?
Yeah, it's just from where. I've crossed quite a few different areas, being a supplier to the end user and all that stuff. Yep. And my perspective is always, you can't get your efficiency initiatives moving. You can't move your initiatives, efficiency initiatives, moving forward unless you address the risk issue first.
Yeah.
So the best approach is, if you can address these 2 issues simultaneously, you'll achieve the best results. You'll get people on board.
So let me throw out a radical idea. What if you could remove the risk? So today we're basically operating under certain risk parameters, right?
Yeah.
And if I look at the virtualization of compute, storage, and network, everyone used to have this concept of, that's my server dedicated. I must be able to have this one because I can't risk someone else sharing that resource and causing me to have an issue, right? So that mentality led to a whole bunch of inefficiencies. Then people realized the cost was too high. And so they now balanced the risk and the cost. And ultimately what came up was, we had virtualization and orchestration software that allowed us to be able to remove the risk by distributing the load. They changed the architecture. So what else could we do potentially to follow a similar thing? And in my day job I'm doing right now, we're doing the same one. We should be able to increase the efficiency, unlock capacity, but not at the cost of the resiliency.
Right.
Well, can you do both?
Yeah.
You can if you use software. So we've got to apply, software and other things that will allow us to do this differently on the data center side.
Right.
So,
that's what you're talking about is enabling technologies, right? And if you have, if you apply different technology and your fault domain is going to be different, your risk is going to be different, and you may solve previous risk problems and you may introduce new ones, and that's the nature of the technology. And actually, we have developed, TGGC developed an IUE metric in the infrastructure usage effectiveness, and we're trying to solve some of the issues that we encounter in our daily lives in the data centers, and trying to solve those problems, address the efficiency and the risk issues simultaneously. So there are ways to do that, and we just needed to think more and bring more experts into the domain.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Tim just gave some artificial photosynthesis. Chemists have successfully produced fuels using water, carbon dioxide, and visible light through artificial photosynthesis. Oh, okay.
Okay.
By converting carbon dioxide into more complex molecules like propane, green energy technology is now one step closer to using excess carbon dioxide to store solar energy, in the form of chemical bonds for use when the sun is not shining and times when of peak demand. This is exactly, these are the kind of things we got to think about.
Right.
Where, I look at, if you take nature, and there's so many things in nature that sustainability starts to mirror. If we could figure out ways that there's a balance in that ecosystem, it's a really, really sweet design. So this, a totally different way to look at energy storage.
Yeah.
No one's really even think about it. So thank you, Tim. That's the kind of thinking we need. That's the radical inefficiencies that ties to the renewable energy anywhere. Okay.
Wow. How's the edge data center?
Yeah. Edge data centers.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Edge is going to change it because all the variables are a little different inside of cities and micro edge, right? All the way down to the last 1,000 feet, for sure. Okay. So commitment to building a new data center, digital world in the shadow of the old one. Nice. All right. So we're going to need to wrap this up. If you have more ideas, continue to send those over to us. You can send them to admin@imasons.org and we'll incorporate them back in within this. So I want to say thank you to David for jumping in this and being my co-pilot within our initiative and brainstorming.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being on the panel. And I'd like to thank all of our panelists for being on the summit. So, and I want to thank the members here. So we've had really amazing attendance in this one, and you guys have stayed through the entire thing. So thank you very much for that. Last thing, I want to just remind you that all this content is going to be available on our platform. It's going to be also back up on our website as well. The last thing is that I want you to see what's behind the scenes. So this is the team that actually makes the magic happen in the background. So thank you very much, Karina, our visual artist here. Sorry. My God, I can't even think. Jeff, what's your name, Jeff? So Jeff, one of our executive directors. We've got Jen over in Portland, Oregon as well, and Simon over in London, and Adrian, who's been the orchestrator of our entire event. So a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of this. And all of us are going to do the wave like we're at a baseball game. There you go. All right. We're getting claps on the actual comments here. So thank you very much for attending. And we went 13 minutes over, but I think we did okay. So wonderful. We'll see you on the next virtual summit and hopefully in person sometime soon.